So good morning and welcome to today's witnesses joining the Aviation Subcommittee's hearing titled Disruption in the Skies, the Surge in Air Rage and Its Effects on Workers, Airlines, and Airports. As the nation works to get to the other side of the COVID-19 pandemic, the surge in public air rage incidents has exacerbated the already tenuous workforce situation in our aviation sector and eroded confidence in air travel. These incidents have also put the safety of frontline workers, passengers, and the nation's aviation system at risk and could potentially lead to further safety issues. Unruly passenger behavior is not necessarily new. From 2015 to 2020, the FAA initiated a total of 786 investigations into unruly passenger behavior. However, through the first 9 months of 2021, the FAA has initiated 789 investigations. Airlines have filed 4,385 unruly passenger complaints since the beginning of the calendar year, including 3,199 mask-related complaints. As Sarah Nelson will testify from the AFA-CWA, frontline aviation workers have to deal with everything from vulgar language, including racial epithets, to punching, kicking, biting, shoving, and spitting from passengers. This behavior is from a small percentage of the traveling public, but it is disgusting, it is unacceptable, and it is a danger to fellow passengers, to crew, and the entire U.S. aviation system. Congress, the federal government, and the aviation industry must work together to protect airline crews, airport staff, and the traveling public from passenger outbursts, while also preparing for the next public health and national security crises. As subcommittee chair, I made aviation safety and enhancing the air travel experience for passengers and crews a priority. 3 years ago, I worked with then subcommittee chair Frank Lobiondo and others to pass the FAA Reauthorization Act of 2018, which increased the maximum civil penalty per unruly passenger violation by 48% to $37,000. When incidents began to rise after the January 6th attack on the Capitol, Chair DeFazio and I encouraged FAA Administrator Dixon to use the full weight of federal law to protect airline passengers and crews ahead of the inauguration. Earlier this year, the FAA announced a series of measures to combat passenger issues, including a zero-tolerance policy and a public awareness campaign that showed noticeable results. But Congress and government agencies can only do so much, and I was encouraged to see this week that FAA urged airlines to take additional steps to address this issue, though there is confusion about what FAA is asking of airlines and others in the aviation sector. I look forward to hearing from today's witnesses about the enforcement of U.S. laws prohibiting such behavior and what more Congress and agencies can do to support frontline workers. And the public health response must lead economic recovery. And as one thing that we can learn from today is the lessons learned from the ongoing pandemic show the urgent need for a national aviation preparedness plan to improve the safety of aviation crews, employees, and passengers to minimize disruptions to the national aviation system and restore confidence in air travel. And I would ask members to consider supporting my bill, the National Aviation Preparedness Plan Act, which I introduced earlier this year with my colleague, Don Beyer. Before we begin, I want to thank the women and men on the front lines of the aviation industry who continue to keep people and the economy moving forward during these very difficult times. Today's witnesses represent stakeholders for air carriers, airports, and frontline workers who can speak to the current situation and what changes need to be made to reduce these incidents. I'm pleased to welcome Sarah Nelson, International President of the Association of Flight Attendants, CWA. Ms. Nelson will provide the subcommittee with personal experiences both as a frontline flight attendant and as president of a union representing 17 airlines across the aviation sector. Mr. Teddy Andrews is a longtime flight attendant with United Airlines, will be speaking today on behalf of the Association of Professional Flight Attendants. Mr. Andrews can provide his first-hand experience as a frontline flight attendant during the COVID-19 pandemic, highlighting the horrifying abuse he has been subjected to while, as he will say, simply doing his job. Ms. Lauren Beyer is Vice President for Security and Facilitation for Airlines for America, and has worked on a variety of issues related to aircraft safety during the pandemic. I look forward to hearing from her about airline industry's efforts to address passenger behavior and what other support airlines need in order to do so. The subcommittee will also hear from Mr. Christopher Bidwell, Senior Vice President of Security at Airports Council International North America. It's important to hear the steps that airports are taking to prevent potential unruly passengers from boarding aircraft, as well as additional measures Congress and agencies can undertake. In my district, and of course across the country, transportation means jobs and is key to the economic recovery. And without a safe, reliable commercial air travel industry, I would not be able to get to and from work. Many of us would not be able to get to and from work here in Congress and back home again. My constituents would not be able to travel to see family and friends, and frontline aviation workers would be without a job. Congress, the federal government, and the aviation industry must work together to reduce unruly passenger incidents and ensure passengers and crews that the airlines are safe to fly. So I look forward to today's discussion on how to best support your critical work moving forward. Now I want to before I turn to the ranking member, Mr. Graves from Louisiana, I'll just remind members that if you're speaking, you may, under the rules, you may take your mask off. If you're not speaking, to please wear a mask. With that, I'll turn to...
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to see the rule enforced.